Good morning, everybody. Happy Saturday. Welcome to Coast College Football Pregame Show. We are on episode number 14, week 10 of the college football season. Do not adjust your sets. We have a bunch of special guest hosts today. We have Cottrell the Duck. We have Bronco the Terrier, top right. But before we get started, gotta say, I'm coming live to you from Annapolis this morning, Annapolis, Maryland, home of the Naval Academy, obviously the Navy midshipmen. I know you guys will agree. There's just something different about a Saturday morning if you're in a college town. Like you wake up, you can automatically feel the energy. We drove in last night. Stadium lights were on. Up early this morning. There's already people walking around, getting ready. I just love it. I love college football. But as always, let me introduce the two gentlemen that will help me steer the ship. I don't know how to introduce this guy today. Top left. Usually my Buckeye brother from another mother. Today, he is Cottrell the Duck. He lost his bet. He's paying off his debt to Alex this morning. He's in full duck gear, including a nice little hat. It looks uncomfortable. I don't know what else to say. Mr. Cottrell Simpson, how are you doing this morning?
I'm all right. I'll be better after I get this schlop off of me. But, gotta pay my debt to society here. So, Alex, enjoy it while it lasts here. But Bill, to your point earlier though about being in the college town, I definitely understand the feel. Being 10 minutes away from Ohio Stadium, every Saturday, place gets nuts. If you want breakfast, you better go somewhere out of this city because
you either got to be somewhere by 7 or you're not getting it.
Yep. Because the best thing you'll have available is lunch. So I definitely understand the college field there. So I'm happy for you.
It's just everything's perfect today. It's a little cloudy, perfect fall afternoon. It's not cold, but it's chilly. It's got a little crisp in the air so far this morning.
Woke up with some dew on the grass,
Exactly. Leaves are hitting the ground. It's a northeast, like just ready to go fall morning.
Mm-hmm.
But last but not least, Mr. Oregon Duck himself. Mr. West Coast, Mr. Eye Black, Mr. Broncos Daddy, Alex Elmore.
You forgot Mr. Undefeated, Mr. Number One, but I'll allow that for next week. But I love how Cottrell's in this outfit because
you got about 6 more hours of that left.
Jeez, you're talking real big for a guy who's played 3 quarterbacks this season. Anyway, I like how Cottrell the Buck to Cottrell the Duck. And you know what? The green and yellow, they look good on you, my friend. I'm going to tell you. You're more than welcome to join Justin and I at an Oregon Duck game rocking that outfit. You'll fit right in. We'll treat you nice. We'll welcome you like family. So next time you're in town, come on down. We'll take you. But Bill, I am a little jealous. You are in a college town, man. I have some great memories being in Corvallis and Eugene for college game days and just game days in general. The atmosphere around campus is unmatched. I think that's one of the things that college sports has even over pro sports. It's like the atmosphere on game day. Obviously, there are some exceptions, of course, but like as far as a consistency, I love college football.
There's no exception.
There's no exception. Don't sell it short. There's nothing like it. Don't get me wrong. Like, listen, I am blessed that I come from a city that, like, if the Eagles play at 4:00, you go down the link at 8:00 in the morning, and the lots are full, and we tailgate better than just about anybody. But college football is still different. There's the tailgating, but the camaraderie, the atmosphere, people are nicer. It's just different. And that's okay. It's different and it's better, in my opinion. I love pro football. I will never love pro football more than college football. It's just different. And again, different's okay, but it's better, in my opinion. But
you can't name me one NFL atmosphere that has the feel of an Ohio State, Michigan, has the feel of Oregon State. And Oregon State's not even like a world-class, team or university there as far as college football goes. Like there's no like Alabama, Georgia or Alabama, LSU, Georgia, Florida. Like there's nothing like this. Like that, like Jacksonville. This is their Super Bowl, essentially.
Yep. Yeah, you're right. That's a great point. There's a great point. And like I look at, like, I've been to Eagles Dallas games, and they don't hold a candle to being in Michigan Stadium 2 days after Thanksgiving to play Ohio State or vice versa. It's just different, and it's, in my opinion, it's better. But let's get cracking because we have been going a little bit late. And obviously there is an enormous game that kicks at 12 today, so we have to be done on time, especially for Cottrell's sake. So Alex, as always, my man, headlines. Let's go.
Let's roll into it. I opened up my morning newspaper here. Oh, okay. I like what I'm seeing. Big 12 investigates unsecured headsets. A little bit of background information. There was some information leaked that it's not public knowledge, but if you knew how to find the channels used from coaches to quarterbacks on field, you could actually find the channel and listen in to those radios. The Big 12 has launched an investigation and has concluded that every Big 12 on Big 12 matchup leading up to this week, none of them were compromised. Nobody was listening in. I don't know how exactly they figure that out. I mean, I don't know how they can track how many radios are turned on to a certain channel or not during a certain period of time. I'm not sure exactly how they tracked it, but they did say that none of the Big 12 matchups previously were interfered with in any possible way. But guys, what are you thinking about this? I mean, you had one job to do, right? It was implementing this headset program to make it easier and harder for the other team to steal signals and plays and stuff like that, only to find out that this whole time, week 8, week 9 into the season, that it was still compromised. It still had an opportunity to be compromised. Is this system ever going to be perfect, or is this going to be kind of a work in progress?
Yes, it can be perfect. Look at the NFL. I mean, you have your one-off instances where, you have like Spygate, or you'll have New England tapping in the headsets and things like that. But as a whole, you don't hear this story hardly ever. And they've been communicating through the headsets for a while now. So absolutely, there's a way to get this perfect. I mean, of course, you'll have your one-off scenarios and things like that. But this is kind of a black eye look for the NCAA year one having this kind of issue. And of course, the Big 12 is going to come out and say, hey, no games were compromised. They got to save face here. If they're coming out trying to quote unquote get ahead of it, I mean, that's what they have to say. Even if they did find that there was information like being transmitted to a certain team, they're not going to let us know that. They may still handle that internally and say, hey, this school has this undisclosed fine because of, our investigation, but they won't let us know that, especially coming, a year removed from dealing with the whole Connor Stalions, sign stealing gate per se. So, I mean, I think it's definitely possible to get this right, but it's really going to be a matter of, does the NCAA want to get this right? Do they care enough to actually make sure everyone's abiding by these rules and not trying to get that advantage there? That's going to be the real question mark moving forward.
Well, first off, I'm happy to report that Connor Stalions has not been seen on any Big 12 sidelines. Secondly, Cottrell hit the big one on the head. This is as always, this is going to depend on if NCAA decides they want to get involved, if they should get involved, how much money they can make off of it. Obviously, the Big 12 is going to bury it. They're going to say, they don't want to go through what the Big 10 went through last year. And honestly, I hate to say it too. I mean, almost everybody's playbooks have different terminology. So if you're getting like 3-second clips of somebody's play call, not only that, you're not gonna be able to get it into your defense probably quick enough anyway. So hopefully this isn't like keeping a lid on, Pandora's box, and we find out that somebody had, they were literally just listening to their entire conversations. But I don't think that's what it is. I think this is just kind of ironing out the kinks of it being the first year, and I think most of the time it was probably secure and just little leaks here and there. And like I said, they'll smooth it out, and I think it'll be fine for the rest of this year and next year, obviously. And it's good that the Big 12 is the only one that's had this problem so far. You haven't heard any of this from the SEC or the Big 10 or anybody else. So I think it's just an isolated incident.
Yeah, and I'm sure that after this came out, I'm sure the Big 10, SEC, all the other bigger conferences, I'm sure they looked into it immediately just to make sure that was an issue in their conferences as well. So I don't think we should be hearing about this too much going forward. Anything else you guys want to add before we jump into some portal news?
That's it for me on that one.
All right. So as we all know, Matt Saluka, he used to be the quarterback for UNLV. After the game 3, he decided to redshirt. He was promised $100,000 in NIL money. Again, it was never proven, was never disproved, but either way, he did end up redshirting. He has now officially entered the transfer portal. What are we thinking about that? Do we think a team's going to give him a shot? Or even better question, do we think a team with a lot of actual national exposure is going to give him a shot?
See, for me, this boils down to I don't think he's a great quarterback anyway. I think he was in a very good situation with that UNLV team. And like you said, he says one thing, they say another. I think he was in a really good spot there to kind of grow. And again, if that UNLV team could have beat, Boise State and had a chance at the group of 5, that was his route here. I mean, I don't think he's going anywhere big. I mean, I think he probably ends up at another Mountain West school or, like a Conference USA, somewhere like that gives him a chance to compete maybe. I guess the good thing, the positive thing, if you're in his camp, is that he's the first guy really in the portal. So, I mean, everybody knows he's there now, and, he'll probably kind of have his, I don't want to say pick of the litter, but there's not going to be any speculation if he's going to enter or anything like that. He's firmly in there, so he needs a place to go next year. I don't think he lands anywhere big. I don't think he's at a Power 5 powerhouse or anything like that, because I just don't think he's good enough.
Well, I mean, I think the question is going to be, does this experience, I don't want to say humble him, but maybe he can take a similar route to, and granted, he's not the same caliber talent, but maybe he can take the same route as a Dante Moore and, go somewhere where he knows he's not going to be a starter per se, but he goes to a good system and tries to fit in until, he's ready to go. I do know he's older. I don't know if he actually still has a red shirt or not to burn, but I mean, I think that could be an option. Or you look at schools that are potentially losing quarterbacks next year. The one that I said when this whole thing broke was Colorado. I mean, I think if anybody can control a person's ego and figure out NIL and make sure that that's all squared away, I think it would be a guy like Deion. And obviously, they're going to be losing Shedeur next year. Like, he won't be there, and we know nothing about their backup QB situation. So, and as of now, they don't have anybody like a crazy quarterback coming into that 2025 class. So, I mean, I think Colorado is definitely going to be a school that's in the market for a quarterback. USC is going to be another school that's in the market for a quarterback. Miller Moss is probably going to go pro at the end of this year. So I think the opportunities may be there. And it really just depends, though, if some coaches won't take on the baggage of, oh, you're a guy that's just chasing after the money. We don't even have any interest in you. But then other coaches are going to say, hey, we're looking to win football games. And, it's ultimately what we need to do. I think the last thing I'll say is you've seen quarterbacks like, granted, it was Houston from Texas, but Murphy literally was a backup at Texas, and he went over to Duke. One of those schools that are kind of in the tweener kind of year takes a shot on Max Luka just to see if they can have that one like special year per se.
Colorado, I could kind of agree with there, because I think that if they are in the transition year, they're kind of just like wiping next year. I could see. I don't think there's any shot he goes to USC. I just don't think he's good enough to play there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, like, if he wants to sit.
I get it. I mean, yeah. I mean, I guess we have to figure out how much eligibility he really has left before we can,
Well, I'll tell you right now, he had 4 years at Holy Cross, and then just a year at UNLV. So I think he only has 1 year of eligibility left.
Yeah,
Next year would be his 6th year.
Yeah, so he's got 1 year. He's got to go somewhere where he's either going to be promised or, at least told that he's going to compete for the starting job. So, yeah, I mean, he's probably going to be, he's going to have probably a small defined amount of opportunities and situations where he can go into, and then you got to have a coach that's willing to bring him in and be like, I got to sell this guy to my locker room and be like, he's going to be our guy for the year and not, walk out 3 weeks into it with something else. So I think that matters too.
Yeah, and I also think that, had Malik Williams not came in and, handled the job as well as he did, and if UNLV had, at this point was now 4-4 or 3-5 and hadn't won a game since he left, I think he'd have a little bit more ground to stand on. But the UNLV offense has really kind of been rolling. Malik, he's even a better passer than Matthew Sluka was. So I think UNLV is actually in a great spot, having moved on from him. I think they would still be 6-2 had Sluka stayed at the program. So I think really all he did was kind of shoot himself in the foot because he burned a lot of bridges. And with UNLV's continued success, it shows that it wasn't because of him. And I think he was hoping that they would kind of go on a downward spiral after he left, and that didn't happen. So I think he ends up somewhere in like Conference USA. Keep an eye on UAB. That UAB Trendilfer experiment has completely crashed. Zeno, who's out today, he's graduating this year. They're going to be looking for a quarterback next year, and with a UAB program that's really just freshly back into college football, having a college football program, that could be a name that could bring some attention to him. So that's who I'd be looking for, is that school like UAB to pick him up. But I don't think a Big 12 school like Colorado would. But again, that's just my opinion. Anything else on Matthew Sluka before we kind of advance on to some Michigan news, Bill?
As far as Colorado, I don't think he's going to go there because I don't think Deion's going to be there. So.
That's a conversation for another show. That's a big conversation there.
Listen. We said before we're not going to get into it, but he goes to FSU. That's going to make things spicy. So
very spicy because he can recruit literally. Ugh.
Here's a really weird question, and I just want a one-word answer from both of you. If for some reason Deion Sanders were to go to Florida State, does the SEC reconsider Florida State as adding them to the conference? Yes or no? Don't want to get too detailed. What do you?
I think it's yes, but I still think it's a very complicated discussion because they have to bring somebody else with them.
Right.
And I damn sure don't think it'll be Clemson. So
correct. So
okay, but you think that Deion move would maybe change some opinions as far as conference moving?
I think it makes people pick up the phone. I'm not saying it makes it happen. I still don't think it happens because I think
just their lawsuit.
I think with their lawsuit and everything going on already, it just gets messy. Honestly, I don't know if Deion would want to go. I think Deion, to Cottrell's point, I think Deion's going to out recruit everybody in the ACC by a mile, and he's just going to sit there and be like, "We're going to rack up ACC championships. I'm going to be a top 4 seed every year. We'll see you all in the playoffs." And I think that's what he's going to do.
And to just add on to that again, won't go too deep into it, but for me, I think it'll be a matter of we don't really know. I think SEC picks up the phone just to have that conversation like Bill said, but I think the bigger conversation that would need to be had is we don't know how much longer Deion wants to really coach. It feels like he got into coaching because of his kids. Well, Shiloh's going to be out of eligibility, and Shedeur is going to the NFL. So obviously, I still think Deion coaches for a few more years here. But if Deion's only going to be if Deion's only going to be at Florida State for 3-4 years, it wouldn't make sense to uproot your entire program to go to the SEC, because then after Deion leaves, while Florida State is still a great job, you'd be getting smashed in that transition period.
Yeah, and my other thing is I've always contested. I ultimately, to Cottrell's point, I don't think he wants to do this for 10 or 15 more years, and I think he wants to take a shot at the pros. So I don't know if he's done enough at Colorado for somebody in the NFL to take a chance on him, but I also think if he starts fielding those phone calls, I don't think it's a guarantee he even goes to Florida State.
Yeah, that'd be crazy. Well, that's some storylines for the offseason. We got a couple more news stories to go on to, and that's going to be that Jake Tuttle, Michigan QB, has announced his retirement. He announced on Instagram that he is retiring from a string of concussions as well as other health issues, and that this season he actually suffered his 5th concussion of his college career. Second week in a row, we're talking about a young, promising quarterback retiring at a young age due to these concussions and injuries. Obviously, Bill, this hits you a little harder than Cottrell and I, but what's your opinion on the situation?
Listen, the more we learn, you look at the NFL, and Tua is kind of like the hot topic because he has 4 and he's going to come back and play. I think the more we learn about CTE and the actual after effects and down the road effects you get from suffering concussion after concussion. I think at some point, if you're at a young age and I'll just be frank, like Jack Tuttle wasn't going to go to the NFL. You know what I mean? So it's for him, to his point, is it worth sitting out 2 weeks to try to come back and play one more game or two more games and possibly risk getting another one? Very bright guy. He's going to leave Michigan with 2 masters. And he just made a decision where it was, best for what he thought, for his life and his well-being going forward. And to your point, it's starting. I don't want to say it's eye-opening, but I think you're again, Grayson. That was a kid who, we talked about him last week. Was great at Coastal Carolina, transferred out, thought he was going to have a chance to, go somewhere else and kind of, have another big year, and he retired for the same reason. I think these kids are just learning, especially if you really don't have definitive NFL prospects in front of you, that you think you're definitely going to the league. It's just not worth it, dude. It's not.
Oh,
I think we lost Bill.
Yeah. But, I mean, until we get him back, I'll echo a lot of the same sentiments, though. I mean, one thing I will say, you kind of threw it out there, and it was like the one word I caught on. I wouldn't say Jack Tuttle was a promising quarterback per se.
Well,
but
I'm not going to talk bad about the man as he's announcing his retirement. All right, what could have been? What could have been? All right,
but look, to Bill's point, at the end of the day, this kid's 25, 26. He's one of those older quarterbacks, 60-year guys, and he had no shot of making it to the NFL, and especially where Michigan is at right now, I do think there would have been more to consider if Michigan is 6-1 and he had just won the quarterback job. Like, I think that's one thing, but to be at the helm of a Michigan team who is, I would say best case scenario sneaks into like a New Year's 6 game, maybe at this point in the year. You have to weigh that accordingly. And I think for him, there's been a QB carousel at Michigan so far, and what he would ultimately have to put his body through, potentially suffering another concussion, to just be a backup quarterback or a quarterback of a team that's going to a non-New Year's 6 bowl game. Like, I just don't think the juice would be worth the squeeze there. So I 100% understand where he's coming from with this one, and he has really no regrets. He's kind of bounced around from different schools and things like that, but ultimately started at Michigan, ended at Michigan. Like Bill said, he's getting 2 degrees there. So, I mean, he really should have no regrets regarding this.
Yeah, I mean, I think Bill kind of said the most important thing here is, if he's not going pro, he's leaving with 2 masters. He's leaving with a national championship. He's leaving with a lot of experience. I'm not sure if he's going to jump into coaching and just like, I forgot his name that we talked about last week. I'm not sure if he's going to go coaching route or not, but I think, this is probably a good decision. Do you think that in college they should start requiring those Guardian helmets?
Requiring, no, but offering, yeah.
I feel like in college and high school, I feel like the Guardian helmets are essential, especially high school and college kids, because like these guys are still learning, their bodies are still developing. Like there's so many head injuries that have happened just this season alone. 2 quarterbacks retiring. I mean, I think if anything, these last 2 weeks are arguments for the Guardian caps becoming more of a normality.
I think part of it too, though, is at these bigger schools. I mean, it definitely would be a possibility, but Guardian caps cost money. And, a lot of schools have money, but you can't have Ohio State going out there with Guardian caps, and if they're playing Marshall and there's nobody on Marshall's team, not, just using them as an example, not saying they can't afford it, but like, Marshall may not be able to get 110 Guardian caps for players that want it or to just go through practice and things like that. So, I mean, I think it sounds like a great idea, but in theory, I think why it's at the NFL level is because they have all the money to do this. And you bring it down to the high school, like there's some high schools that they can barely afford a football team, let alone, guardian cap, things like that. So I think it sounds good in theory, but at the end of the day, money is going to be the solution to all.
Can't argue with you on that one. We got one last topic to go through. Obviously, Bill was an expert on the last one. Cottrell, I think this is probably going to be more up your alley. But Bryce Underwood recruiting, there's been a lot of mixed signals out there. Him decommitting, Michigan offering $5 million NIL deal to come to Michigan. Cottrell, let's start with you, though. I know that you're typically the best versed out of us when it comes to recruiting, followed by Bill, then me. So, what's your opinions initially for this Bryce Underwood recruiting news?
So for me, I think it's interesting, and I borderline want to say I think it was kind of expected in the sense of Bryce Underwood has been a kid that's on the scene since he was a freshman in high school. We've known about Bryce Underwood and how good of a quarterback he is literally for the past 3 years at this point. And he's a Michigan kid. Like he goes to high school in Michigan. Michigan has always been all over him, and they've been recruiting him hard literally since his freshman year. So I think that when he made the decision ultimately to commit to LSU, I knew Michigan wasn't going to just bow out of the race. And again, because this kid is a Michigan kid and he's so close to home here and was thinking about going to Michigan, this is a kid that I follow. I follow his story and I follow his path. And the fact that Michigan is offering this money and they had a quarterback decommit, I get it. The rumors are going to start to swirl there, but ultimately, if this is a kid that grew up in Michigan, he has been on the scene. He's had a Michigan offer for at least 2 years. I'd imagine probably 3 at this point. If he didn't decide on Michigan then, and that's when they had Harbaugh and they came off of a national championship, why would he give that up now? Especially when he's committed to LSU, who we know has the best NIL. Not saying they have the most money, but they got the best NIL on all of college sports. Look at it across the board. You look at Livy Dunn, you look at Angel Reese, you look at Jaden Daniels, literally the money game on Amazon Prime. Great little series as well about NIL and following those athletes and things like that. But they understand exactly how NIL works. They'll be able to match whatever Michigan offers. I get it. Michigan's a more prestigious school, and if you want them in, typically your better bet is to go to Michigan. But if he hasn't picked them yet, I don't see why that decision would change, especially while Michigan is having the season that they're having there.
I thought this was kind of a long shot, I would say about a week and a half ago. And then dominoes kind of started to fall to make it look like, maybe we are heading in a direction where, it's a possibility. Obviously Carter Smith decommitted, and that really got everybody's attention because apparently, Michigan communicated to him that, they thought that they had a decent shot of getting Bryce, and if they can get Bryce, they're going to get Bryce, and they just wanted to be upfront with him, so he decommitted and reopened his recruitment. The money thing, the only thing I'll push back on the money thing a little bit with is, even in LSU, like Livy Dunn, a lot of hers is self-generated. That's not a lot of most of hers is not even through LSU.
Right.
But the biggest, to your point with getting offered 3 years ago, they offered them 3 years ago. And 3 years ago, I would tell you, we were in regards to NIL, we were kind of archaic at Michigan. And that's obviously changed the last 2 years. And then obviously in the last, I would say 2 months, Portnoy has got involved in using Barstool power now to dump in another $3 to $4 million a year. So they've caught up really quick. They actually flipped 2 kids yesterday, one from Georgia and one from, I forget where the other kid was. They both signed. And then the interesting part is the rumor going on for weeks that was Bryce was going to be at the game today against Oregon. And now all of a sudden, the other 4-star wide receiver that is very good friends with Bryce is now apparently rumored to be in Ann Arbor this morning for the game. So it's getting spicy. I could say that. Again, I don't know if he ends up signing on the dotted line, but I think they were so far behind LSU in money before, and Harbaugh was a big, I don't want to say non-NIL guy, but he was a big get on campus, prove yourself, and we'll get your money down the line type guy. And you just can't compete that way anymore. You have to give these kids money and even get them on campus. That's just the world we live in now. So I think with the money that's coming in out of the Michigan program, to kind of like Charles' point, I think they went from being like 100th to like now they're probably in the top 10 somewhere. We're spending money in, and I think you're starting to see that. Ultimately, I would love to have the kid. He and his family keep saying it's not a money decision. I don't buy that. I'm not saying that's the only factor, but it's obviously weighing in if he's going to start taking visits to Michigan all of a sudden because we're offering him $1.5 million more than LSU is. So we'll see what happens. If he's there today, I think then it gets real, and I think there's a legit shot that he signs. If it ends up all being smoke, then I think we're right back where we were 2 weeks ago.
I saw I think it was a Facebook reel that really kind of grabbed my attention, in that Bryce Underwood can throw the ball. Like, there's no argument about that. And the downside to Michigan, which again, it's not downside to Michigan, but their play style is run heavy. I mean, like I said, last week, the quarterback had 123 yards passing, and this dude needs to go somewhere where he can just sling it, dude, like where he can show off his talent and showcase it. So I'm not saying he's going to go to LSU. I'm not saying he's going to go to Michigan. I just don't think Michigan would be the best spot for him to showcase his abilities. But hey, I
think the biggest misconception with this is obviously that was the way they played under Harbaugh. And back in the day, obviously they were a traditional Big Ten team. Everybody was. Right. They ran the ball 75% of the time and threw it. With Sherrone Moore, with Kirk Campbell, they were the way you can already see with the class coming in next year, which he would be a part of. Obviously, they went very heavy wide receiver. They have 1 5-star kid from Texas A&M. They have another 4-star kid from Texas A&M. They're trying to flip the kid from LSU. That's a 4.5-star kid. They want to evolve the offense. Sherrone Moore's talked about it before. They don't ever want to abandon the running game, but they want to be more of a modern offense. And obviously, if you get a Blair Underwood, you bring this stacked class of wide receivers in, along with Jordan Marshall and the guys that are already there. They've already recruited running back wise. You can do that. So I think that is a step that we're trying to take. And I think they're looking at Bryce to kind of be the guy to break the mold and be like, see, this guy can come here. We can throw the ball. We're going to update our offense a little bit so we can continue to then start getting more quarterbacks like a Blair Underwood, like JJ McCarthy, guys that are athletes that can throw the ball when they want to. And then obviously we have the receivers that can get open and catch the ball. So that is a page I know they're trying to turn. It's a matter of getting the guy, that is going to be kind of, like I said, the trend breaker that goes, and then it makes everybody go, oh, well, if Blair Underwood went there as the number one guy and had a great 2 or 3 year run there, I can go there and throw the ball around too and have fun at Michigan and like I could at, Ohio State, Oregon, or wherever. So I know that's a goal that, again, if it happens, it happens. If not, I'm completely content with Jaden Davis for next year. But it's hard to not say no if you can get Blair Underwood. So
I think the one other thing too is that there's just some, I'd say, uncertainty there only because of like Sherrone Moore being there. Obviously, Harbaugh said, "This is my guy. Like, I want him to be my successor," and really made Michigan hire him there. I think they'll give him time, but I think to that same token, you knew you would regress this year, Bill, like as a team. Coming off national championship, losing as many guys as you did, like you kind of knew that would happen, but it's not after coming off of that kind of success and you have games where you're losing to like Washington this year. I'm sure you weren't expecting that before the year. And I'm not saying they won't give Sherrone Moore like a leash there, but I think Jim Harbaugh has set the standard. So obviously, first thing you got to do is find a quarterback. But then literally right after that, you have to win football games. And Sherrone Moore is not going to have. In reality, Jim Harbaugh was at the end of his leash before he started winning. If in 2021 they had lost that game to Ohio State, I personally think Jim Harbaugh would have been gone. Like, I think it was like he was that close to being at the end of that leash because the rivalry is so important there. And obviously, we haven't seen Sherrone Moore as the head guy, coach Ohio State or coach, multiple seasons yet. But I do think part of that uncertainty there would deter a kid like Bryce Underwood to commit to Michigan at this point, like without Harbaugh being there.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's probably some truth to that somewhere. But again, I mean, Sherrone Moore also has to. I think honestly, I don't think it's any different than like Ryan Day. I mean, I think at some point you get handed the keys to a very good situation and a good program, but at some point you have to get out of the shadow of a Jim Harbaugh or an Urban Meyer, and you have to make it your own. And if that means you make changes to it, you're the head guy, and you have the ability to do that. And to your point, if it goes wrong, then you're the one that's going to answer for it. There's no Harbaugh there ahead of you or Urban Meyer ahead of you to take the heat for it. But at some point, you got to be your own man. You got to be your own coach. You got to put your own stamp on the program and have your own identity. And if you don't do that, I mean, that's to Sherrone's point. I think they do have to change a little bit, because if not, I think it does start to look like it's just kind of like Harbaugh's like number one guy. Like nothing's really changed there. And I don't think he wants to do that. I'm not saying he wants to abandon Michigan football, but I think this year is also just such an abnormality too, because they decided really early to redshirt Jaden Davis, which I think was a mistake, even though they were getting pressure from his parents. But I just don't think they thought coming out of camp they were going to be that far behind at that position, and it's really hampered them. So it's I think that's why there's so much emphasis on getting Jaden ready for next year, and then they're still pressing for Blair. So it's going to be they know how much value that position is, especially in college football. I mean, to your point with even with Harbaugh, he didn't really start winning until he finally got his guy on campus, which was JJ. That was finally a 5-star kid that they recruited, and it was exactly who they wanted. And you see the results of that. But you have to have a guy that's in charge of your offense that can throw the football, and we can't do that right now, which is why we're struggling. So, it's gonna be really interesting next, I would say, 10 days. I think you'll have a better idea in 10 days what's going to happen, if they really have a shot, or if they're just kind of, it's just kind of all Twitter spat, smoke and mirrors and everything else, which it can be a lot of times.
All right. Well, I think that wraps it up for Break the Huddle. Any other final thoughts before we move on to recaps, I believe?
No, let's get popping in the recaps here. All right, we will start at the top. It's a good order for this. Unfortunately, the town that I'm in right now did not like the result of the first game. Notre Dame 51, Navy 14. I will say this. I think Notre Dame played well. I think Navy just kind of handed the game on a silver platter. Very uncharacteristic Navy game, Navy performance, honestly. I believe they had 6 turnovers on offense, 6 or 7. I can't remember which one it was. Just gave Notre Dame a short field and just kept Navy's defense on the field for so long in the game. They were just exhausted at the end. I thought we were going to be all right. At the beginning, I'll be honest. I know Notre Dame got out to a 14-0 lead real quick, and then Navy went right down the field and scored, made it 14-7. I was like, okay, all right, like they've answered, like and then the wheels just fell off, like quickly. So Notre Dame will get another ranked win. I get it. Navy deserved to be ranked, so I can't really harp on that part of it, but I guess a big win for Notre Dame. Navy's got to kind of regroup and get ready to go this week, and not let this derail their season. They still have a ton to play for if they can win out. So that's about all I have for that game. I don't think there's a whole lot to discuss just because of the way the game kind of unfolded.
Yeah, I mean, 5 turnovers. Notre Dame outran Navy, which is never good if you're Navy to be outrushed by your opponent. And then, of course, Navy just couldn't get Notre Dame off the field. 8 for 13 on third downs, Notre Dame was, and that's a great recipe for Notre Dame, not for Navy. Riley Leonard didn't do anything, too crazy out of the ordinary. 178 passing yards. Really just controlled the clock, controlled the ball, didn't turn the ball over. But I think Navy did show some good fight. Obviously, Notre Dame is, as far as recruiting and talent levels, for them being as far up above Navy as they should be. I think Navy fought really well in the first half, and I think Notre Dame's just physicality up front was just too much throughout the course of the game. And we all thought this game was going to be closer, but realistically, this is probably how the game should have ended up.
Agreed. And I think that Navy, they definitely showed some fight there after being down 14-0. But after that, I mean, it really continued to be more of the same. The spread, I believe, closed at like 13 on this one, and we all thought that was pretty disrespectful there, especially for a Notre Dame offense that hasn't shown you that they had the ability to be great. And to that point, yeah, they got 51 points here, but it's not like the offense was great. I mean, the defense showed up, they got turnovers, and they capitalized on short fields, or they capitalized on the extra possessions there. So you got to give Notre Dame credit there. I still don't think this is one of those like marquee wins per se. I thought Navy was a solid team. Don't get me wrong. Like, I thought this Navy team was a team that could potentially make the playoffs. I mean, they still can. They still have, the Army game ahead of them, potentially twice at this point. But with all of that said, Notre Dame, they went up there to MetLife and they took care of business. So you give them props for that. But I don't think this is a game where you look back like, hey, they really put it on that Navy team, and it's something that scares you with this Notre Dame team.
I would agree with that.
All right, well, that one's cut and dry. Ooh, I like the next one though.
Same was also cut and dry.
Yeah, this was pretty cut and dry. I'll be brief here, and I'll let Alex get into this. 38-9 Illinois, Oregon over Illinois. I thought Oregon came out and looked ready to go. Very crisp, very, very prepared. They executed very well right to start the game. I thought Illinois played their worst game of the season, and I'm not saying that is all self-inflicted. I thought Oregon's defense and their looks really confused Altmaier at the beginning of the game. They couldn't run the ball. A lot of credit to Oregon's defense there. They were out of whack from the get-go, and then they were just too far behind where they had to start throwing the ball all the time. And Illinois is not a team that is designed or built to do that. So this game got away from them very quickly. Oregon dominated. Big win for Oregon at home. Yeah, I mean, that's really. I think Dylan Gabriel, hold your ears, Cottrell. I thought Dylan Gabriel looked very good in this game. Ran the ball with him a little bit more than they usually do. Nice little wrinkle they put in. So, a dominant performance from the number one team in the country.
Yeah, and you said it, number one team in the country. Illinois, obviously, at the start of the game, I didn't know really what to expect. Haven't had a chance to really watch Illinois a lot this season. But I'm really happy with the way the Ducks kind of handled themselves, only allowing 9 points over the last 2 games. But one thing I just really honestly can't stand about the Oregon Duck offense is they just get so boring in the second half of these blowouts. Like, I get that you don't want to show too much. I get that you don't want to reveal too many plays. But you know what? You have backups for a reason. When the game's out of hand like that, get your backups some reps. Obviously, they got Novosowa in the fourth quarter for 2 pass attempts and 7 yards. But I would like to see the guys behind Dylan Gabriel get some reps, because you never know when those guys are going to be forced into a big game. So great win by Oregon. Defense looked great. Offense looked great. But I would like to get some reps for some guys who aren't getting a lot of playing time, because as we get further in the season, injuries, fatigue, all that stuff is going to start setting in. So I wish we would have gotten some other guys in on the action. But other than that, I'm happy with the way that Oregon handled business.
As it gets later in the season, though, Alex, I understand where you're coming from. But again, as it gets later in the season, when you have a game versus, let's say, Ohio State or Indiana or Penn State, whoever, it looks like you would see in the Big Ten championship game. If you get up big in that game and you have kids that have already played 3 games, then for a fact going into the playoff, you don't want to hurt a guy like Dylan Gabriel or Jordan James or Evan Stewart. Like, you would want to have kids behind them that still have the ability to play, but still get redshirted. So again, I 100% understand where you're coming from because you want to see what you have because those injuries can happen, but you also got to have some red shirts, some red shirt games available in your back pocket. Because trust me, you will need those down the stretch at some point. And it's not just to say because it's the Big Ten. I'm just saying when you know your season's going to last potentially 14, 15, 16 games, you're going to want to have some of those red shirt kids with games left in your back pocket. So,
but look at last year's Florida State. Sorry to interrupt you. Look at last year's Florida State. They did not get their backups hardly any reps in the regular season. Jordan Travis went out at the worst possible time. Their quarterback had 0 game experience, looked like trash when the 2 games that mattered the most, and they were left out of the college football playoff. I don't want to be this year's Florida State, is what I'm saying.
Well, 1, you won't be because there's 12 teams, and 2, you can't fault Florida State for winning their football games and not making it to the college football playoff. That's not their fault that happened.
Their quarterback has better understanding and better handle of the offense. They win those games more handedly. It's not even a conversation.
Well, it won't. He wasn't going to go in there and look like 7th, 8th place finishing Heisman Trophy contender Jordan Travis. No matter how much experience he had, he wasn't going to look like that because that's not the kind of kid he was. The end of the day, they took care of business. They won their football games. And they didn't have a spot. They won the AC championship game. If that had happened to Florida State this year, Florida State would have had a first round bye. So you can't compare like that situation now to where you're at with Oregon. Because again, Dante Moore had plenty reps last year. He was a starter for a little over half the year, so he knows what it's like to play in a real game. You don't need to burn his games there if the intention is to redshirt him here. But with that said, Oregon absolutely dominated this football game. I knew they would. I didn't think that this Illinois offense would be able to put up a ton of points versus Oregon. I thought it would have been slightly closer. I think I said I saw it being somewhere like a 17 to 20 point win. So them winning by basically 30 was a little bit more than I was expecting there, but you got to give Oregon credit too. These kinds of games are the ones that can kind of sneak up on you, and especially when hey, we know we're the better football team here, but this is just another bump in the road. And you've kind of seen it in games past. Like I say that to say Georgia, Kentucky earlier this year. Just last week, you had Ohio State and Nebraska. Oregon hasn't had a game this year outside of the first 2 weeks. And again, that's understandable because it's a new season. Oregon really hasn't had a game down the stretch here where they've taken their opponent lightly and or not looked up to that Oregon standard. Oregon has looked the exact same here for the past 4 or 5 weeks as the seasons went on. So you got to give Oregon credit for that. And then for Illinois, ran into a better football team, met the buzzsaw. Like Bill said, wasn't their best game. And you can't not have your best game against a team like Oregon because a score like this will show that it'll reflect that, I should say. So give Oregon credit for showing up. To Illinois' credit, still having a great year. You have to not let this be a detriment to the rest of your season, though. Have to still realize that, hey, this is still a great season for us and going out and keep winning football games.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, they got to get right back on the horse today and play Minnesota, I believe, at home. That was always going to be a tough matchup for them. Again, I think Oregon just came out of the chute just firing on all cylinders. Illinois has been a team that kind of slowly gets into games. When you blink an eye and you're down 21-0, that is not ideal for a team like that. So we'll go to the next game here, which was even less of a competition. Alabama 34, Missouri 0. Shutout. I don't even want to call it dominant performance. I just don't think Missouri is that good, especially with the injuries they're dealing with. Quarterback Brady tried to, he started, he tried, he made it to about halftime. They took him in. I think he played one series in the second half. His ankle was he just couldn't play. I give the kid all the credit in the world for gritting it out and trying, but they just have no offensive identity, which is just so weird compared to the team they were last year. They still have Luther Burden, and they just have no identity on offense. Alabama just kind of pinned their ears back and went after him. They knew he couldn't really move. And honestly, I'm just gonna be honest. I don't know how Missouri's ranked still. I really don't. It's a goddamn travesty. And I thought maybe it was the whole have somebody pick up another ranked win this week, but they have a bye. They've played two good teams and they've gotten demolished by both of them. They're just not a good football team, and that's fine. There's no reason they should be ranked with the two losses they have and being absolutely just outclassed in both contests. There's other teams there that are 26, 27, 28 that deserve to be ranked ahead of them. But, big bounce back, kind of type game for Alabama. Looked pretty good on offense. Again, I don't know how much you can measure on the defense because Missouri just couldn't move the football. So Alabama moves on. Missouri their season is officially done. So thoughts, recaps, what do you guys think?
For me, I'll go quick. This game, and I get it, Brady Cook was hurt, but this game is why we didn't show Missouri a lot of love in the preseason when we talked about the SEC. We knew that Luther Burden was special. We knew Brady Cook coming back would be a good quarterback, but we didn't think that they'd be able to replicate the success they had last year, and this is really showing that. I mean, their two toughest games of the year so far. We knew the first 4 games of the year were absolute cupcakes. They went up against Texas A&M, and they got absolutely demolished in that game and lost by 30+. And then they play Alabama. Granted, your starting quarterback is injured and is not playing a lot. But you go in Alabama and you lose 34-0. I think it's indicative of what this team is. They are a middle-of-the-pack SEC school. Last year was the magical run. And they're nothing more than that. To your point, Bill, they absolutely shouldn't be ranked. They didn't deserve the ranking. After that A&M loss, they should have been out of the rankings, if we're being honest with ourselves. They should have given up their spot to Army or Navy weeks ago. So for me, I mean, this game was absolute domination. There's really not even much to say about it because the game was never – there was never a question about this game. Literally from the first 10 minutes of the game, you knew Alabama's going to go and dominate this football game. So I really don't even have much more to say about it.
I mean, even as much as Alabama was able to dominate this game, Alabama didn't even come close to playing their best game and dominated by 34 points. They were 2 for 9 on third downs. They still had 7 penalties for 85 yards. These are things that they need to be cleaned up before getting tougher competition. Obviously, Brady Cooks tried to play the game, was taken out for, was it Drew Pine, who threw three interceptions. Obviously, they didn't have their starting running back in Noel. But guess what? They still had a good push up front. They were still able to move the ball on the ground. I feel like they just kind of got away from that because Alabama was able to jump out to that 2-possession lead. Like Marcus Carroll, the Missouri running back, he had 17 carries for 80 yards, and Jamal Roberts had 17 carries for 71 yards. So they were able to move the ball and over 4 yards to carry on the ground. But when you become one-dimensional and when you do have to throw the ball, unfortunately, in those late-game situations and your quarterback throws 3 interceptions, it's going to look a lot worse than it is. But it's crazy because Alabama, like I said, did not even come close to playing an even C game for them, and they absolutely demolished Missouri. So just like you said, Bill, I'm surprised Missouri's ranked. It is what it is. I don't think they're going to be in that standings too much longer. And Justin, how many points has Oregon scored in the third quarter? I'm guessing 10. In case anyone hasn't seen the question, Justin asked if anyone can guess how many points Oregon scored in the third quarter this season. And I'm saying 17. But anyway, continue.
I'm sure I'll answer. We'll go next to the game that we all correctly picked right, that it was going to be a tight ball game. Texas went down to Vanderbilt, and Vanderbilt gave them everything they could handle and then some. Final score, Texas 27, Vanderbilt 24. Really good football game. Every time it looked like Texas was going to kind of pull away, maybe get an extra, insurance touchdown. Vanderbilt will get a stop, go down, score. This game went for all 60 minutes. I'm going to say this. Like, this isn't even like, and we haven't done this on this show, but I've heard it on other shows, which I think is selling Vanderbilt kind of short. everybody keeps saying like, oh, they're a scrappy team that's just kind of getting up for these games this year. No, I watched the majority of this game. Vanderbilt's a good football team. They are a good football team. Can they beat, Texas week in, week out, Ohio State, Oregon? No, probably not. But they're not the doormat anymore. You go to Vanderbilt right now, you don't want to go there. And then I don't know how this escaped us on Wednesday, Cottrell. Maybe, I don't know if you picked it or if I just didn't see it. There's 7.5-point underdogs at Auburn today, who stinks.
Whoa.
Yeah, I don't think that line was up when we did picks on Wednesday. I didn't recall seeing it because that would have jumped out at me like a sore thumb. That's disrespectful. I'll tell you right now, if you want to lay some money on something, I think Vanderbilt just wins that game outright. Auburn stinks. But that being said, to this game.
They beat Kentucky last week, so people are like, "Oh, well, Auburn's back."
Yeah, Kentucky's what? Well, I think they have one win in the SEC. It's Kentucky's still getting love for almost beating Georgia a month and a half ago. That being said, this game, Quinn Ewers again in spots look great. Other spots, he's just. I'll say this: I watched that kid play, and I want to love him. It's just it's still the same thing from even beginning of last year. He just lacks consistency, I think, at key points sometimes. And I think that's what's holding him back. I've talked about it numerous times where, people they list Shador or, they keep listing their top 2 or 3 quarterbacks. And I'm like, I know deep down, I know Quinn's as good as them, but his lack of consistency is what's keeping him out of that conversation. And this was another game about it. Again, overall, I think he played really well, but he had a couple drives where he missed easy throws to extend drives, and they had a punt, and Vanderbilt got points on those drives. It's stuff like that little things lead to big things, and he's got to sharpen that stuff up, not only for Texas, but for what he wants to be down the road. But that's all I'm going to say about this game. You guys can jump in here. And like I said, I just don't think Vanderbilt's getting enough credit for just actually being a good football team, because I think they are.
I mean, I do too, and I think for them, it almost felt like it was and I don't want to say a tale of two halves because that wouldn't really paint the perfect picture of how this game went, but you can tell Vandy played with more of a sense of urgency towards the end of that third quarter and then all of the fourth quarter there. The offense was moving the ball down the field, and really every time it felt like Texas was about to have that put-away drive, Vanderbilt got to stop. They went downfield, and they went down and scored. And it was like that literally all the way up until the end there. Vandy is a school that has a ton of fight, and I think that school, it may be that they play better at home. In front of those fans, those kids are electric, and there's so much energy in that stadium and on the sidelines when they're playing at home. Maybe that's part of the reason why that line is the way it is versus Auburn. I still think that's nuts to have it that way. I don't care, where they're playing against Auburn. But again, though, with that said, give Texas credit. I mean, they were able to run the football effectively when they needed to, and I think Texas still does have a lot to clean up as well, but I think Vanderbilt has shown you, like Bill kind of said, this isn't the Vanderbilt of it even just 2 years ago. This isn't the Vanderbilt of last year. Alex's man Diego Pavia, he's been taking care of business there, and I mean, they're having that year. They're going to get bowl eligible this year, and I still think Vanderbilt, I don't know who else is left on their schedule. I know they got a couple more ranked games, but I think Vanderbilt's not done giving people hell in the SEC.
Hey, man, so we got Auburn today. We got South Carolina next week. They got a bye, and then they have LSU and Tennessee to close the season. LSU is at LSU. Tennessee is at home. So essentially, these guys could have a huge impact in affecting who goes to the SEC championship game. With LSU is still kind of in play there. Tennessee obviously being the number 7 team in the country. That's going to be a huge game to end the season. But yeah, Diego Pavia, man, he is an absolute rock star. The Vanderbilt stats didn't jump off the page, compared to this Texas team. When you see 27-24, you expected some similar numbers. But when you look at the team stats, Texas really did dominate. I mean, Vanderbilt was 3 for 12 on third down. They only passed for 155 yards, and they were only averaging 3.7 yards on the carry. What they did do well was Diego Pavia was able to extend plays with his legs, make big plays when they needed to. And like I said, when that Vanderbilt atmosphere is like it's never been before, and they truly have a home field advantage for the first time probably in their college's history. And that really shows. Diego Pavia, like I said, I was talking him up last year. When he went to Vanderbilt, I was like, that's an interesting choice. But hey, he is the ultimate equalizer. This season so far, they have 3 losses, but like I said, he's kept them in every single game this year. And when he went out during this game for Nate Johnson for a series, we were all texting how Vanderbilt season's over. We're glad that, and I'm glad that he wasn't out for too long in that one series. It was a great game. Push Texas to the limits. I mean, that's exactly what you want to see, and I'm excited to see the rest of the season, as Vanderbilt is only 1 win away from being bowl eligible, and that'll be fun to see Vanderbilt playing in December.
All right. And last, certainly not least, this is one of my favorite games of the weekend for numerous reasons, mainly because the last 7 minutes of this game when LSU couldn't get off the field and, the cameras just kept showing Brian Kelly freaking out. I take joy in that. So I could be petty, but I'll admit it. So I loved it. Cottrell's boys, Texas A&M, 38, LSU 23. And I would still say, even after this game, A&M is still flying under the radar nationally somehow. I don't get it. They're running a 2-quarterback system pretty much. Connor Wigman started the game, played pretty well. I can't remember the backup kid's name off the top of my tongue. But when he came in, this whole game, when he came in, it shifted this entire game. They started doing a lot of, RPO with him, and he was running around like a bat out of hell. And LSU had zero answer for him defensively. Zero. Dominated the second half, pulled away. A couple late interceptions from LSU and Gus on that side. One really sneaky one at the end, which I thought was kind of cool. But A&M, another dominant ranked win. I still think they're only 10. Like it's crazy to me. They're getting no love, and honestly, I think Mike Elko likes it that way. I think he's coaching them up and just continuing to tell them that they're not getting any respect. Don't buy into the hype. Texas A&M is a good football team, and they're on pace to probably win the SEC or at least get to the championship game. Over a lot of
left in the SEC.
Yeah. Over a lot of these teams that we talk about a lot more. So I'm just impressed. I'm impressed with A&M. I really am. LSU, I kind of thought this is what they were. I think them being ranked 8th was a joke. I said that last week. This just proved it. Cottrell, I'll let you go first on this one because you've been on A&M since literally the preseason episodes we did. They're good, man. They're good.
They are. This is a team that, again, I've kind of been expecting them to finally look like this. And to their credit, I mean, for A&M, it looked a little bit different this game. Normally, this is a team that likes to pass the football and, move it up and down and rely on Wegman. But this game was a lot of the run. You had Amari Daniels and Le'Veon Moss really toting the rock here. Amari Daniels has been their backup running back pretty much the entire year, and he plays, but this is definitely one of his best games of the year here. Le'Veon Moss, granted, he averaged about 6 yards a carry, but Amari Daniels came in, basically averaged 7.5 yards a carry, and LSU could not stop them moving the ball up and down the field there. So got to give Texas A&M a lot of credit offensively there. And the other big thing was that Texas A&M forced turnovers, and the turnovers they forced were timely. Nussmeier having 3 interceptions, it really made Texas's offense not have to do much. That's why they were having so much success running the football, because they were getting it in, again, short field. They were getting it, getting these extra possessions there, and they were able to chew clock. So LSU was really fighting from behind pretty much the entire game there, and got to give A&M a bunch of credit for really neutralizing that LSU offense.
I'm gonna tell you what, I did not watch this game, and I really wish I would have, because when I look over the box score and stuff, it is the most weirdly looking box score ever. Obviously, A&M won by 2 possessions, but they were only 6 for 14 on 6 for 14 on third downs. They were out passed by 270 yards. I mean, they absolutely dominated the ground game, and they forced 3 turnovers. And I guess that's really the main difference in this game. But when you look at the stat sheet, you would think LSU had a dominant game, but the A&M defense really just stuck in there, forcing 3 interceptions. Garrett Nussmeier is going to have a strong career in college, but this was not one of his best games. Still 405 passing yards. They were only able to run the ball 35 yards on 22 carries. That's definitely going to be a drive killer. Yeah, I mean, Cottrell, and you really were on A&M last year as well. Obviously, they had a little bit of a disappointing season with injuries last year, and the way the season started off as an 0-1 against Notre Dame, it was kind of looking like a similar path, but they've really turned it around. They're a control first place of the SEC, and this is kind of where you guys had them early in the season. You guys really convinced me early in the season to kind of change my mind on this A&M team, and now that we're kind of see them having a literally non-existing passing attack and still pulling off a 2-digit win in the SEC, or sorry, two possession win in the SEC. That's nothing to bet your eyelashes.
The funny thing about this game as well is that it was literally a tale of 2 halves. So I talk about the interceptions being timely. All of them happened in the second half there. And if you watch that first half, you would have thought LSU, they're going to take care of the game. I mean, it was only, I think it was 17-7 or 21-7 at halftime, but LSU had missed a couple field goals in there. Texas A&M had fumbled in the first half. LSU really could have been up close to 31-7 or so. That game really could have gotten ugly in that first half. But in the second half, Mike Elko made his adjustments. Brian Kelly probably didn't, because they were having so much success in the first half, and you really saw that on the field there. So that A&M team definitely battled. LSU is a team that seems like they don't know how to necessarily face adversity. I'm not really surprised, because they are Brian Kelly led. But this A&M team, man, I tried to tell you guys, I'm glad we're all aboard now. But this is a team that they still got a long season ahead of them.
Here we go.
Paul, who you talking about? Only has 1,500 of their own fans.
Vanderbilt. He's talking about Vanderbilt.
All right. We are actually on time today. This is
moving.
We
know what's coming.
We got 4 games to preview today. Not a huge slate, so that's going to help as well. And we're going to start with this one, rivalry game. The old, what is it, the biggest cocktail party? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, largest cocktail party. They're trying to make it more PG now. They're calling it the largest mocktail party. It's largest cocktail party though.
Largest cocktail party. Georgia, Florida. They play every year. They play in Jacksonville, so it's technically neutral. A lot of people think Florida, might give Georgia a little bit of a scare here, a little bit of a game. I think it's probably a decent game for half. I think Georgia pulls away in the second half here. But the good part about this is also, me, Cottrell's boy, Lagaway is going to start this game and play the whole game. Graham Mertz is finally out for the whole year. Torn ACL. He is going to get.
When you say it like that, it sounds bad. He's finally out for the whole year.
I said what I said. It is. It's going to be fun to watch Lagaway play against his defense and this team. I'll say that. But I fully expect Carson Beck and company to handle business here. Number 2 team in the country, pick up another win here against a rival and move on, get ready for the stretch run. So I like Georgia by 10 or 13. I don't know what the actual spread is on this. But
I get it for you right now.
Now it's 14.5. I think it
14.
opened at like 18.5 though, or something around there.
It opened at 15.5 on ESPN, and now it's 14.5. So it's been bet down, at least on ESPN bet.
I could see this being like 31-20, something like that. Again, I think it's a comfortable win for Georgia. But I think Florida hangs in.
So the funny part is that Graham Mertz actually hadn't been having like a bad season. I just think that DJ Lagway provides them with such a different dynamic. He's mobile. Obviously, he can run with the football with quarterback design run. So it really essentially takes away a defender in the box. And so it opens up Florida's rushing attack as well. And you saw that in his first start in SEC play. There, Florida running back, I forgot the kid's name, but he had an absolute field day versus Kentucky. He had 5 touchdowns in that one, and the Florida offense just looked a lot different with Lagway in there. Now, he didn't light the world on fire by any means, but this is a kid where you know what you're going to get. He's a gunslinger. He's going to make the dangerous throws. Sometimes those will turn into interceptions, but other times they're going to turn into long completions, and you didn't really have that kind of dynamic with Graham Mertz. And so I do think this game's going to be tight. I'm not necessarily saying Florida's going to win or Florida's going to cause this to be like one possession game, but I think this Florida team covers. I'm not using it as like an official pick 'em pick, but I do think this is a Florida team that can cover. Bill, you said 31-20. I love that score. It's an 11-point game. Sounds like Georgia, it'd still be 2 possessions and Georgia would take care of business, but it's a game where you can actually watch it and be entertained from start to finish. And we haven't had that in a long time with this Florida Georgia matchup.
No.
For this to be as big of a rivalry as it is, that we usually get like in the middle of the season, goes neutral site, it has not been entertaining at all. So I think this is a game where you can actually watch it from start to finish and not actually be bored. And again, I said it a few weeks ago when Graham first went down. DJ Lagway has the opportunity to save Billy Napier's job. And I think if you keep this game tight, you keep finding some more wins. They're already 4-3. The over-under was at, 3.5 when we started the year? So they already.
I think it was 4.5, but yeah.
So I mean, they're right at it, and the rest of the schedule doesn't look as dangerous as it once did. I mean, they still have Texas, like the following week.
Did you say Florida's schedule doesn't look as daunting as it once did?
Absolutely.
Okay,
they have Florida. They have Florida next week, which will be. I mean, not Florida. They have Texas next week, which will be
Georgia,
big
Texas,
game.
LSU, and Ole Miss. That's 4 straight ranked matchups. I'm actually glad you brought this up because I was going to talk about this.
LSU isn't the same monster that we thought that they might be at the beginning
Florida
of the year.
Is terrible.
Ole Miss is not the same school. We saw Ole Miss lose
is going to boat race Florida 49-7.
Again, that's fine that you think that, but these aren't the same schools. LSU was we thought had an outside chance of making the playoff this year. None of us picked them. We thought they had an outside chance to get in there. Ole Miss, we all had making the playoff. That's not going to happen unless something drastic happens. And then the following week against Florida State has been an absolute dumpster fire. So all they got to do is find a way to win one of these next 4 games because they're going to beat Florida State. They're going to roll out of bed and beat Florida State. They got to find a way to beat one of these ranked teams here to be bowl eligible. And if they're bowl eligible, that saved Billy Napier's job until at least next year because DJ Lagway would be the reason why they won against one of these ranked schools.
I agree.
Look, man, I look at this schedule and I get that there's hope. And I get that, what was it, the over-under at the beginning of the season was about 3.5 or 4.5?
That's what we're kind of wondering.
Yeah, I think it was 4.5. I want to say it was 4.5.
We're almost done, buddy.
That's not me. That's not my side. My dog doesn't bark. That is not me. But no, I mean, this Florida team, DJ Lagway is going to put, some extra nos in their system, get them going. And I know that every single game, they have to win 2 games the rest of the year. So every single week is going to be like a playoff game for this Florida team. But Georgia has just been on one. All right. I mean, they said after their loss, when they were number 1 earlier in the season, they've kind of been – they kind of stuttered a little bit. Like I said, they didn't look great against Auburn. Mississippi State was a little, left some to be desired. But I feel like they really got back on track against Texas last week. And they're going to continue that against Florida into the rest of the schedule. I think Georgia knows that they are one of 4 teams with 1 loss in the SEC. And like I said, their best chance of making the SEC championship is to win out. as it is with any of the other one-loss teams. I think Georgia is in the best position to do it, and I think they take care of business here. I think what the spread's 14.5. I think this is a 3-touchdown game. I think this game seems over at halftime, and I think Florida in the second half makes it look closer than it is.
I need you to put some respect on DJ Lagway's name because it doesn't
Nothing to
sound
do
like
with DJ Lagway, my man. Nothing to do with DJ.
I'm just saying, against Georgia, I get it. I understand. Like, I'm fine with that. But against LSU and Ole Miss hasn't shown me the ability to beat anybody by as many points as you were talking about this season. And LSU, they have to travel to the Swamp this year. So neither one of those schools I trust to do anything.
You know who else had traveled to the Swamp this year? Miami, A&M. I mean,
Miami's undefeated and probably gonna win the ACC. They don't put Ole Miss in that category.
And DJ Lagway did not start either of those games.
This actually might be DJ Lagway's coming out party, if I'm being honest, because I think a lot of people are going to watch this game because it's a noon kick. I think there's a lot of people that probably haven't seen him play yet that are going to watch him playing this game.
3:30.
It's 3:30. Yeah, he's going to open some eyes today.
You know what? I hope that you're
Alex's
right.
eyes.
I haven't been that crazy impressed. Obviously, Florida is already at the win total that I thought they were going to be at. Actually, they think they've won more games than we thought they were going to win at this point in the season. But I mean, if anything, I would like to see if Lagway is going to have a good game. If they're going to keep the game close, that he's going to need to use his legs a little bit more this game. And I just don't think that that's going to be part of the game plan. And I think, like I said, Georgia takes care of business.
You say Florida stinks, but they really should have beat Tennessee.
Yeah, but what has Tennessee done since entering SEC play? They've looked very magoo.
Tennessee still looks better than Ole Miss has.
Facts.
That's your argument for everything. What about Ole Miss? I'm talking about Tennessee now.
You just said Ole Miss is going to beat them 49-7, exactly.
And they will. And they will. And they will. Okay, next game.
This is the sleeper. This is going to be a great game. And this is kind of the sleeper card, the sleeper game on the card today. Pitt traveling down to SMU, who is obviously SMU is one of Alex's babies. He's been on it from the preseason, just like Cottrell on A&M. So I will give Alex the first crack at this one. Pitt has just slowly kind of improved week after week, keep winning. SMU's offense is finally caught in stride, and last couple of weeks they're just murdering people. This is gonna be a really, really good football game. And this game has a lot of implications. You got Miami undefeated in the ACC. Clemson's undefeated in the ACC. To their credit, they've kind of flown under the radar as well. Ever since that opening week loss to Georgia, they haven't missed a beat.
Played nobody, but you know.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, it's still. I mean, they're still cruising along.
True.
Whichever one of these teams wins this game, stays alive, and has a shot to get in there. And then again, we've talked about Miami over and over the last couple of weeks. Miami is definitely firmly in that begging to get beat territory. One of these teams can clearly get in the ACC and shock the world and pull an upset and maybe get a college football playoff bid. So there's a lot on the line in this game. SMU is home. This is a night game, I believe, correct?
This game is 8 o'clock on the ACC network.
Nice. Prime time. I love it. Because they'll have it to themselves. I don't think there's another good primetime game on the night. Alex, like I said, I'll let you have first crack this because I know SMU is one of your babies. So break it down for us.
Yeah, man, I got 3 teams that I really support this season. That's Oregon, Kansas State, and SMU. I've been very, very kind of consistent with that. And between those 3 teams, I only got 2 losses, and both of those losses are to BYU, and it's very irritating. I'm going to tell you that right now. SMU's only lost this season.
Stop betting against BYU, bro.
Hey, you know what? At least I'm not sure. Was SMU's loss to BYU at BYU? I don't remember. But look, SMU needs a good bounce back week. Last week, they barely walked out against Duke going into overtime. Neither of those teams wanted to win that game last week. They had both teams had 3 or 4 opportunities in the last 3 minutes to put that game away. Missed kicks, turnovers, going for 2-point conversion for the win instead of forcing another overtime. Like I said, SMU dodged a bullet last week. I think they were 14-point favorites, and they only won by 1. So going into this week with Pitt against an undefeated Pitt team as 7-point favorites is a little bit interesting to me. Pittsburgh has played a lot of closer games than SMU has, as we've said. Besides last week, SMU's kind of been putting teams in the dirt early, but Pittsburgh's played a lot of close games this year. And I think that that's going to continue. Last week, they were able to take care of Syracuse handily, but the reason they were able to do so is because of 3 interceptions returned for touchdowns. And I don't think that is a defensive effort that's easily replicated. And SMU, like I said, Jennings is good to go today. I know he was a little banged up last week, but he's been cleared to play. SMU, like I said, is absolutely taking the ACC by storm, and they know that this game is going to be probably, like I said, with the schedule that they have, this is probably going to be for them making the ACC championship if they win this game. And I think they're going to do so. I don't think that they're 7-point favorites over Pitt, but I think they do take care of business. I think it's a 3-point game. Pitt's defense has looked fantastic, especially last week, as I've already mentioned what they've been able to do. But SMU's got Pitt, Boston College, Virginia, and Cal left. So if they can get through Pitt today, it's a clear path to the ACC championship. But I do think Pitt's going to give them all they can handle today, and I think Pitt covers, but SMU wins by 3.
Alex, I actually love that. I love what you said there. I think Pitt's defense last week did look amazing against Syracuse. I mean, you force all those interceptions, you take the ball back into the end zone, you score points on defense. That is going to fire up that team there. I think that Pitt has played a lot of close games so far this year, and they found a way to come out on top of all those games. But if I'm being honest, I don't think Pitt has actually played a team at all this year that's been better than them. And I think this SMU team is just flat out better than them. It's a road game as well. And with that said, I think this game's going to be tight. I think the 7.5-point spread kind of surprised me a bit. I was expecting that spread to be probably about 4.5, just giving SMU 3 points for being at home and being about 1 point to 1.5 points better than this Pitt team. With that said, their quarterback is going to play, but he is banged up for sure. It was kind of a question mark throughout the week, but he got cleared to play. And for Pitt, I mean, they're business as usual. So I think this is a tight football game. I think this is going to come down to which defense makes a play. And, it's funny because after seeing last week, you would expect that to be Pitt. You would think that, hey, Pitt's defense is going to make that play. But I actually think it's going to be SMU. I see this being I don't know what the over-under is, but I see it being a lower S scoring game. I can see it being like a 24-20, 24-21 kind of football game. Comes down to last possession, and SMU's defense ultimately gets a stop. So I'm rolling with the better team here, but I do think this game is going to be really tight and has the potential to be the most, the closest and most, I don't want to say most entertaining because I don't think it's going to be like fireworks or anything like that, but I think it can be the most, from start to finish, most entertaining, I would say, game.
Well, here's the one thing. If Keith Jennings, for some reason, gets roughed up in the game, at least they got a very experienced quarterback in Preston Stone backing him up. Yeah. Obviously, Jennings took over for him after a rough start to the season by Preston Stone the first couple of weeks. So, like I said, even if Jennings is, starts the game kind of like Missouri's quarterback did last year, and it doesn't kind of feel right for him, they're going to have someone in the back wings waiting that's going to be able to handle this offense and take him down the field. So that's why I feel so great about this SMU team. I think I would have this feeling whether Jennings was playing or not. That's the great thing about what this SMU team has built. They have 2 great quarterbacks, and the team around them is built for success no matter who's throwing the ball.
All righty.
Where are we going next?
2-2. Well, I mean, one's big, one's really not. Number 1 ranked Oregon, traveling to the big house, play Michigan. 3:30 kick, I believe. Davis Warren will start at quarterback for Michigan again. You tell how excited I am about this game.
Yeah. Hey, you said last week they were going to beat us, so I mean, I'm waiting for that.
I think the big house will be fun today. I think it'll be ready to go.
The temperature is up in Michigan now?
It's probably not. It's not as cold as I would want it to be. I'm sure.
Y'all are lucky you're not in Oregon because it's pouring in Oregon.
Rain don't bother me.
Yeah, cold would be the thing.
Ann Arbor, it's 45. At kick, yeah, it's gonna be 53. They're
Nice.
lucking out this year. They're lucking out. Lucking out as well.
Stupid global warming.
Doesn't I know.
Freaking warm in November.
It doesn't look like Will Johnson's going to play either.
He's not. He got rolled out.
Cakewalk.
Yeah. So I think it'll be fired up. I think it'll be a really good atmosphere. I think Michigan will still make Dylan Gabriel beat them. Mason Graham and Davis have just been playing out of their minds the last 2 weeks. I think they're going to shut down Oregon's run game. But that being said, with no Will Johnson on the back end, they're going to have to start a sophomore one way or the other, especially when Oregon goes to 3 wide. I think it's just going to be too much. I don't know. I don't think we're going to be able to move the ball consistently with any kind of danger, I guess you could say, to make Oregon really, really sweat. So, this is not the matchup I just thought it was going to be to me in the year. I'll say that. So I think Oregon wins. I don't know how ugly it gets. I think it actually might be a little bit of a closer game, but I don't think they're in any danger of ever losing. I think Oregon will have a very successful, slightly easier than it should have been first trip to the big house, but I think they'll take care of business. I'll say they win like 31-23, something like that, but it's probably really not that close.
But I feel like
Alex, you go.
I feel like you forget that we've been to the big house before. And we took care of business in the big house before. We actually ran 2 Statue of Liberty plays in the same game while taking care of business at the big house. So you say first trip, maybe first trip as Big Ten members, but definitely not our first rodeo, baby. This is going to be another game. Oregon takes care of business. I did breathe a sigh of relief when I did see that Will Johnson was out. Obviously, in the secondary, he is a game changer. So seeing him not on that defense, maybe breathe a little bit easier. But I mean, facts are facts. Michigan has the 12th ranked scoring defense. One thing we're not used to hearing about that is that's their Big Ten ranking, not their national ranking. This defense is not last year's Michigan defense, and Oregon's offense is Texas with a run game. So I think this game is going to be pretty handled pretty easily. I think that Oregon's going to kind of take care of business in the first half. They're going to take their foot off the gas in the second half like they do, disappointing all of us Duck fans and making us question play calling capabilities. And they're going to handle the win. I think it's going to be like a 38-10 game. I think Michigan's able to get a little bit of success in the second half, but I don't think they score in the first half.
Ooh. 38-10. That's out there, Alex. I like that.
I don't think it's that far out there. I mean, a similar score to Texas in them, and we're definitely better offense than Texas is showing right now against Michigan.
I mean, I understand,
Yes.
I guess, but I wouldn't have picked 38-10 before the Texas game, though. But with all that said, I'm rolling with Oregon.
That's true.
Oregon's
we have
better.
seen the Texas game, and so we know.
Fair. I'm rolling with Oregon here. Better football team. Michigan still lacks a quarterback. They've got 5 quarterbacks in the roster, and without Jaden Davis playing as a true freshman, none of them really give you any hope. I think the one thing that Michigan could potentially have going for them is running the football effectively against this Oregon team. If you try to just ground and pound this Oregon team and try to limit possessions, that's going to be your one hope of staying in this football game. Oregon does have a good defense. They have a D-line that can stop the run. So, it's not going to be a cakewalk by any means. But if you find creative ways to run the football at home and limit some of those Oregon possessions and really just try to take away the big play, then you'll have a shot in this one. I don't see that happening, but that should be your game plan. Limit the big play and can defensively make Dylan Gabriel work down the field. You want 10, 12 play drives. If they lead touchdowns, fine, but that's taking time off the clock. And then when you have the ball, you're just continuously running the football down the field, bleeding that clock. So it turns to a possession game. You want Dylan Gabriel to make one mistake. You want your quarterback to not turn the ball over. I'm not saying he has to play great. He doesn't have to throw for 200 yards, but you want your quarterback to not turn the ball over. You want to win that turnover battle there. With all of that said, I am picking Oregon in this football game. I actually think the opposite of Alex. I think it's going to be actually close in that first half. I think you're going to see Oregon go to the half with like a 7-point lead, but I think it gets ugly in the second half. I think that first half, it's maybe 17-10. I see the game ending 31-13, 31-17. Like I see it ending somewhere in that range there. So I think Oregon covers. I think it's a 14-17 point win for them, and we're gonna go from there.
Sweet. Yeah, I was hoping that this was a ranked versus ranked matchup, but I'm gonna be happy with going 2-0 against you guys this season. So I'll be happy.
Last but certainly not least, the big one, noon kickoff. Number 4 Ohio State, number 3 Penn State. Happy Valley. Penn State went down and did not make this a whiteout game.
Cowards.
Really, it's because they don't want to lose during a whiteout. It loses its prestige if they lose.
And what makes this worse is that James Franklin came out and said 12 p.m. in Happy Valley in Beaver Stadium. There's no atmosphere better. Like that's why we wanted this game at noon. And it's like, James, who do you think we are? We've seen Happy Valley at 7 p.m. in a whiteout. We know that's one of, if not the best atmosphere in all of college football. Don't try and patronize us and act like you wanted this game at 12 p.m. because that you felt like that gave you the better advantage.
Yeah, I didn't like that. I mean, I think it was. Yeah, I think it's a little bit of a cop out. I think it's him trying to kind of circle the wagons a little bit and make it sound a little bit better than it was. But again, no deference to anybody else in the country. Whiteout game at Penn State, 7:00 at night under lights it's kind of in a different category, all on its own.
To your point, Bill, I don't want to cut you off here. I'll just say it quick. I think there may be only 2 schools in the entire country that probably play better at noon than as opposed to playing overnight. And that would be Ohio State and Michigan. Like, I don't think either of us, not saying our night atmospheres suck, but like we don't have like great night atmospheres compared to some of the bigger schools that have the bigger schools that have that tradition. Playing a 7:00 game in Oregon is going to be way different than playing a noon game in Oregon. I think Alex could attest to that as well. It'd still be crazy in Austin, but at 7 p.m., most of the schools are going crazy. I think in Ann Arbor and in Columbus, the fans are going to get as crazy as they're going to get at noon as opposed to 12.
Well, yeah, I mean even
night opposed to 7.
Yeah, I mean even night games. I mean, I think even now, I think we've only played 6. I think it is 6 or 7. We haven't played that many. It's just, again, it's more of a tradition thing, like you said. Those fans are used to getting up and having a noon kickoff. Like you're up at 7:00 in the morning, get ready for a game. But let's to get into this one, I'll let Cottrell go first here. The breaking news is Drew Aller is going to start. He is off the injury report. I don't know how much of this was gamesmanship. I find it hard to believe last week he was game time and now he's off the injury report altogether. That's a little weird to me. But again, I said it on Wednesday. If it was gamesmanship, I'll give James Frank a little bit of credit because I think at that point, I think Ohio State did have to spend some time this week at practice preparing for Bo and running that option. So, but Drew Aller is going to start. If you're a Penn State fan, I guess that's best case scenario. For me, I'm glad he's going to start because I don't want to hear any excuses coming from either one of these fan bases, depending on what happens. So if Penn State loses today, then you lost with your number one guy back there. I don't want to hear anything about it. I think this is going to be a really good football game. I think a lot of it is strength versus strength. I'll pretty much just summarize what I said on Wednesday. I think whichever coach sticks to the run game and doesn't abandon it when it gets a little bit iffy, I think that team is going to win the football game. I think Ohio State at some point has to have a game defensively where they show that they're tough and they can't be run all over. And I think Penn State's going to try to run the ball with that two-headed monster at the beginning, run play action with Tyler Warren and Drew Eller and see how far that takes them. I think that's their game plan today. Ohio State, as well as Penn State, I think both offensive lines are not great right now. I think they're both a little bit banged up. They're playing guys they didn't think they would be playing at this point. And I think it gives both teams an advantage. I think it gives Ohio State, which has a great defensive line. I think that gives them an advantage getting a Drew Aller, who's not the most mobile guy in the world. And then obviously having Abdul Carter, which you can put on either side of the line. Ohio State, I believe, is starting their third string left tackle today. Is that accurate?
No, they're going to start. They're going to
shuffle somebody.
Yeah, so they're going to start the All-American left guard at left tackle. So, I mean, it's going to be – that can go one of two ways. A guard playing tackle.
Yeah.
He can go one of two. He can go look great. He may look bad, but they're going to actually start their starting center from last year at left guard.
Okay, so they're just pushing everybody down one. And, again, that could go one of two ways, but Abdul Carter is one of the best DNs in all college football. He's going to test them. And then I think it comes down to, overall, I think whichever defense plays better. And I think, Drew Aller versus Will Howard is a very interesting comparison. I think if you're Ohio State, you can live with, hey, they feel obviously way more comfortable with Will Howard outside the pocket than Penn State's going to with Drew Aller. That being said, I picked it the way I picked it Wednesday, and I'm going to stay with it. Just a gut. This is not a trash Ohio State type thing, anything like that. I'm just strictly going with my gut. I felt this way since last weekend. I think Penn State wins a nail biter, and I also think this ends up being kind of the straw that breaks the camel's back in Ohio State, but in a good way. Kind of like when Georgia lost. I think Ryan Day kind of really circles the wagons after this week. If they do lose, I think he gets a little bit more forceful and strict maybe. And I think you see a different Ohio State next week. I think you see a killer Ohio State next week. I'll go Penn State 27, Ohio State 24. I'll stay there. Won't be surprised if either team wins. I'm happy I don't have a dog in this race. But I am damn looking forward to watching this football game in a little bit.
So I'll say this. For me, I kept it kind of brief on wire to wire. I'll really keep it brief here. For me, I think the game looks a lot like how it did last year. I don't think a lot of pieces have changed either side. I mean, Drew Aller definitely gets a year older, and of course, Will Howard's going to be in at quarterback as opposed to Kyle McCord from last year. But defensively, they actually did a pretty good job of bottling up the rushing attack at Penn State. They held Nick Singleton to 48 yards last year, and they held Katron Allen to 26 yards. So I think if you can just follow that game plan, of course, James Franklin's going to make some tweaks to the offense, and they got a new offensive coordinator at Penn State, so things will look a little bit different. But I think, especially knowing that Drew Aller is coming off of a knee injury, whether he's 100% healthy, 80%, 75%, like we don't really know where he's at. And I said it all week. I didn't think the kid was going to play today when you call him a game time decision. Now he's off the injury report. Something's got to give here. Put pressure on him, make him run around, and make him beat you with his legs if he's coming off of his knee injury. I think Ohio State would be smart, and you saw it a lot more last week against Nebraska, and I was expecting it. You saw them blitz Dylan Raiola a lot more than they have pretty much all season. I would send more blitzes towards Drew Aller, make him make his decisions quicker, and make him be elusive. Make him use his legs and make that knee feel a little bit uncomfortable. So for me, I think this is going to be a lower scoring game, similar to how it was last year. I see this being a 24-13 win for Ohio State.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a good game. Obviously, I'm glad Drew Aller's playing. I would like to see both these teams at full, as close to full strength as possible, facing off this big of a matchup. And everything's on the line. I mean, Ohio State loses one more game, they're almost guaranteed not a spot in a Big Ten championship. Penn State needs this win to kind of stay in that race. So this is going to be a hard-fought match, especially in the trenches. Here's a telling stat for me. Penn State in the second half has been a completely different animal. We're talking about Oregon and like a second half offensive struggles. Well, Penn State has absolutely excelled on the defensive side of the ball in the second half, only allowing 30 points all season long in the second half and only 6 points in the fourth quarter. So Ohio State, if they want to win this game, they're going to need to jump out to an early lead because that Penn State defense gets better as the game goes on. And Penn State, if you guys want to win this game, you're going to have to run the ball as much as possible. When Ohio State played Nebraska, it was a 4-point game. What did Nebraska do well? They ran the ball. Like I said, they only averaged 3.1 yards per carry, so not the best stat, but they ran the ball 33 times, which helped them control the clock, getting third down in short situations, allowing them to complete 9 of 16 on third downs. So if Penn State wants to win this game, they got to get themselves in short yardage situations, control the line of scrimmage, and that defense has to get stronger with the game like they've been doing all year, and Penn State will win. Like I said, I think at Ohio State, I think they realize what this game means. I think after that loss to Oregon and then that almost lost to Nebraska last week, I think that Ryan Day has got a little fire under his players' butts, and I expect them to run the ball more consistently and better this game, even against a much better defensive front that Penn State has. I think Ohio State's had a tough week of practice, and they're going to come out firing. I wouldn't be surprised to see Ohio State with a 14-point lead at half, just because, like I said, they need to start out fast against this Penn State team, and then I kind of see Penn State's defense picking up the slack in the second half, and this ultimately being a 3-point game. I want to say Penn State wins it, but I'm leaning Ohio State this week.
All righty. To pick 'em we go.
Let's do it.
God, we all suck.
I'm pretty sure I got Superdog points last week, but that's on me for not updating you.
Yeah, I mean.
Yes, that's on me. That's on me. I think I picked Vandy. I'm pretty sure I picked Vandy. But yeah, that's all right. Ooh, we are all bad at this.
I mean, I'm killing Superdog. Everything else is just awful.
You had one game.
I have one game. I've actually hit I think it's 5 of 6 or 4 of 5, something like that.
He's definitely hitting Superdog. I'll give him credit.
But he got that huge lead because of that first week. I forgot who that was, but he had 68 points that first on the Superdog week.
Stop crying.
Okay, you're right. I'll reserve the crying for you tonight after Oregon demolishes Michigan.
Bro. I've already talked about it. I'm good. I'm good.
See, it's no fun, Bill. It's no fun when you're like, we suck right now. Like,
Bill,
it's no fun.
I hate the fact that
I'm objectionable. I don't know what to tell you. I don't puff it
but
up.
But when it comes to us playing each other, you're not supposed to be objectable. You're supposed to be argumentative.
I just hate that you said Michigan's going to win this week, and then you didn't double down on it this week. I wanted you to come on and just double down and say, right? This is the week that Oregon, they're not focused. They're not focused this week. They're not ready. Alex, you gave me all the stats about how teams travel across the country and they're not prepared. Well, damn it, this is going to be one of those weeks. I was ready for it. And then
I didn't buy into that last week when we talked about it.
Yeah, but you could have used his own argument against him. I was ready for it.
I laid it up for him. Alley-oop.
All right, I'm gonna go through these real quick.
Cool. Let's do this.
Arkansas +7 at home against Ole Miss. I talked about Ole Miss. Ole Miss doesn't look good in a month. Everybody that's gone to Arkansas this year has had trouble if they've even won. They've come out with close wins or they've gone to Arkansas and lose. I'll take Arkansas +7 at home. Illinois +3 at home against Minnesota. This is one that just kind of boggles the mind. I think Illinois is a better team. I know they're coming off a loss. I think that helps my case. They are at home, and Minnesota, I think, is a very beatable football team. So I will take Illinois +3 at home against Minnesota. This last one, I have Air Force at Army -20.5. I might have to change this because I just saw that Army's quarterback is not playing. The spread only went down 2 points. I might just keep it, but if I decide to change it, I'll update it on the page real quick. And then for my Superdog, we talked about Duke and Miami. I feel like Miami's been begging to get beat. I don't think it happens this week, but Duke's been in every single game they've played this year. I think at times they look good. Other times they look a little discombobulated, but they always manage a way to stay in the game, keep it close. I think 20.5 is a lot. So I will take Duke plus the 20.5 for my Superdog.
All right, and just like always, I'll go right behind Bill here. I got Illinois plus 2.5. at home versus Minnesota. Same thing. This line stuck out to me right away, and so I'm rolling with Illinois. I think they take care of business. I think they get the win at home. Second game, I like Syracuse to bounce back this week. Obviously, disaster game last week versus Pitt. They're at home against the Virginia Tech team, and they are 3.5-point dogs. I think they take care of business, some core rebounds, and you see Syracuse pull off a win. And then my third game, I love Nebraska -6.5 at home versus UCLA. Again, to Alex's stat that we just joked about teams flying across the country and playing these games in different time zones, things like that. I think that may factor into it, but the biggest factor is that UCLA stinks. And I think Nebraska, they showed some fight last week, and I think they're going to be hungry, and it's going to be a pissed off Nebraska team, and they're going to go in at home and handle UCLA handily. So love them there. And then my last pick, just like Bill, I also have Duke +21.5 at Miami. Like he said, Miami has been begging to get beat for about a month now. And I think for Duke, them traveling to Miami, this isn't as crazy of a game as it sounds. Miami plays their games at Hard Rock Stadium. They don't have a true home field advantage. I mean, yeah, there'll be crazy, Hurricane fans there, but not the craziest home field advantages that you see like in college football. So I think Duke goes in there and they make that an absolute football game. And I would not be surprised if Duke won the game outright. We are due for a Mario Cristobal blunder to lose them a football game. And I think it might happen today. Give me Miami +21.5.
The only thing I'll say about UCLA is they're only going one time zone to play Nebraska.
Not two. They play in Central.
But they are
one time zone.
They are one of the teams that actually what was the stat? They're like 3-21 or whatever it was. UCLA is one of those wins. They went all the way to the East Coast and beat Rutgers.
That's true.
Just saying.
All right. Well, we got 10 minutes left, so I'll get my picks in and out. First one is also going to be Nebraska versus UCLA. I got Nebraska covering that +7. I think last week they showed a lot of grit, and I've seen that offense really excel. UCLA has really been up and down for me this year. Not too impressed with them, so I'm going Nebraska +7.
UCLA wins outright. Just kidding.
That's cool. That's cool. I got Nebraska +7. They can win outright.
Well, Nebraska's -7, but
Yeah, keep going.
Oh, Nebraska. Did I really do that? Oh,
yeah. It's okay.
Not bad. I typed it wrong. Anyway, Nebraska -7. They're going to dominate UCLA. Next up, I got Louisville versus Clemson. Louisville was ranked. Obviously, they're not currently ranked anymore. Their losses this year are to a ranked Notre Dame team by 7, a ranked SMU team by 7, and then that shootout in Miami that they also lost by 7. And since, like I said, sorry, I'm talking about the wrong team right now. Sorry about that. Louisville, Clemson. I am talking about Louisville. They lost to Miami by 7 2 weeks ago. Came back, took care of business at Boston College. But every single game that they've lost this season, it's been by 7 points or less. I think 10 points is a bit of a stretch against Clemson, even as well as Clemson has been playing. I think Louisville covers that +10 against Clemson.
Love that pick.
And then we got Virginia Tech against Syracuse. Obviously, last week, Syracuse had a very uncharacteristic game with 5 interceptions, 3 of them turning into interception touchdowns. Obviously, that kind of skewed that score a little bit. However, Virginia Tech, since they lost to Miami, and that was the team I was referencing, since Virginia Tech lost to Miami in that absolute thriller of a game, Virginia Tech has been steamrolling teams the last 3 weeks, and I think that continues today. If they take care of Syracuse, I think it's actually a 2-score game, not this 3.5-point spread that it is, but I think Virginia Tech takes care of business. So I got Nebraska, Louisville, Virginia Tech, and my super dog. We're going to kind of be consistent across the board. Duke and Malachi Murphy have kept games very close this season. Honestly, should have probably beaten SMU last week on multiple opportunities to close the game. SMU was lucky to escape with the win. And I think this week, as long as they can push drives a little further, I think as long as they take some chances on 4th down in their enemy territory, I think this game is very, very close, especially because Duke just has to avoid kicking field goals because their kicker is atrocious. But as long as they're pushing through it in Miami territory, going forward on 4th down, I think this is honestly a 10-point game. I think Miami, again, 4th quarter, has a big 4th quarter that kind of solidifies the win. But I think Duke might have the lead at some point in the 3rd quarter in this game. So Duke +21 versus Miami. for the Super
Alex,
Dog.
I was rolling with you. We had the same pick. I loved your second pick, and then you picked against me. So,
hey man, we can't
I'll be
always be on
very
the same
curious.
side.
I know. It's fun when we're not always on the same side. But
Virginia Tech, though, they've looked real nice the last few weeks. Since that Miami game, when it was, 38-34, like, Virginia Tech's looked nice. They only have one loss in conference, which means that they're still in play for the ACC title game. So they have to win today, and I think that they're going to take care of business. Syracuse is coming off of a really bad game. I think it's
as
luck for
quiet
me.
as it's kept, the ACC is wide open still because you obviously Miami, you still have Clemson, Pitt's undefeated, SMU is only got one loss. We talked about Virginia
But
Tech.
undefeated in conference.
Yeah,
like
undefeated.
There's 4 undefeated conference teams. That's crazy.
Syracuse has got 2 losses at this point. There's another school that I'm missing.
Well, yeah, Duke, Wake Forest, Syracuse, Louisville all have 2 losses in conference.
Duke, I guess, would be the other one. So
yeah, if Duke plays Clemson tough today, like we all think that they should, that could be a really big upset that could really turn that conference upside down. So that would be exciting. We thought the Big 12 was going to be the most exciting, and it is, but the ACC is really wrapping up to come down to the wire. So that'll be exciting to finish off the season with that.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we're heading into the final third of the season, so it's going to start getting real interesting, real tight, and a lot of these games, even when you're playing cupcakes, they all matter because you have 2 teams fighting for every conference championship spot. So it's going to be fun. The next couple of weeks are going to be great for us.
Right. Do we have time to talk about the Eliminator Mountain?
We do.
What? I forgot about the Oregon, Michigan.
I mean, we're already in the ground. What do you want to do? You put more dirt on us?
No, it's just
they came to visit you guys.
Yeah, came to say what's up, bro. We came to you, Bill. We came to you. We didn't want to make you climb out of your hole.
You come kiss the ring.
Close to that.
I'm liking it, man.
Who's in the? I mean, Missouri's got to be in the ground at this point.
Well, they're still ranked, which is why they're in the copter with LSU because they're still ranked.
They have 2 SEC losses. They're done.
But so is Alabama. Alabama also has 2 SEC losses. So, are we putting Alabama in the ground also?
Yeah, but Alabama's going to have ample opportunity to still get that at large. I mean, if any team can get claimed to the 11th seed, it's going to be Alabama just because of the name.
Not Missouri.
Missouri's got no shot.
No shot. They are done. Ole Miss is hanging on by a thread.
Notre Dame is funny because they are really they're exactly where we thought they would be. Like they beat Texas A&M and it was like, all right, well, I mean, that's a good win, but we still don't think you guys are that good. And then they lost to Northern
Illinois.
Northern Illinois.
See, it's weird with those 2 things because that win is starting to look better and better, and Northern Illinois' loss is starting to look worse and worse.
I know,
but they've fallen off a cliff. Yeah, I mean, it's because it's Notre Dame. I will tell you this: I also don't. If you're Notre Dame at the end and you have 2 losses and one of them is to Northern Illinois, and then you lose to say Army or you lose to USC. I don't think you could feel comfortable come selection night. I'll tell you that much. Because I don't know how you could get in with 2 bad losses like that.
Especially over 2 lost Bama. That's losses are to granted, one of them is the Vanderbilt, but then the other one is to
I mean, Vanderbilt's definitely better than Vanderbilt's definitely better than Northern Illinois. And I mean, if USC ends up being their second loss, Vanderbilt's definitely better than USC. So I
don't see how Notre Dame is ranked that high. I mean, they have probably the worst loss of the college football season. Hold on. Hear me out. They got the worst.
No, we're not disagreeing with you. I'm just telling you.
You know why?
I know why. They got the worst loss of the season.
College football. They're Duke of college football.
I get it. They got the worst loss of the football season. They have 10 out of their 12 games are home games. They were on the helicopter. They were on life support for weeks, and now they're the number 8 team in the country. Like that. It just seems like kind of like we're like, oh, how is Missouri still ranked? Okay, but like Notre Dame being able to jump up that far. I mean, they only lost 4 weeks ago.
The good thing is, come Tuesday, the polls don't matter anymore. So
that's true.
I don't think Notre Dame. I'll tell you this: I don't think Notre Dame will be number 8 on Tuesday night either.
There is one school here though that I think has the potential to really screw up everything here.
Tell me, Indiana,
Iowa State. Iowa State is right now holding down a playoff spot, and that could really go one of two ways. They can either just take it, take the bull by the horns there and then go into the playoff, or Iowa State, I think, is a team that could lose 2 or 3 games and just open up room for a team like Alabama that's just waiting to get let back right in to that college football playoff picture. So I think Iowa State's in a very interesting spot.
Yeah, Iowa State they play Texas Tech, Kansas, Cincinnati, Utah, and then the last game of the season on November 30th is against Kansas State at Kansas State. I think it could come down to that last week, and we could see another situation with back-to-back games.
I think Iowa State could have 3 losses by the end of the year. I think they could go undefeated by the end of the year. Like I don't know what to. Every
Alex,
time people lose, they dominate.
I don't know how many times you're going to keep doing this.
He keeps disrespecting them.
He keeps you just did it again too. You just disrespected BYU again.
I didn't say BYU.
Iowa.
We know that's the disrespect.
That's the point. That's the disrespect. You said again. It's going to be Iowa State.
Could
State,
be.
maybe.
Could be.
BYU sitting there undefeated, sir. They were like a word with you. You've picked against them twice. You've eaten crow twice, and they've already beat Kansas State. So Kansas State loses out on a direct tiebreaker with them. They need BYU to lose twice. And I don't know who BYU has left.
Utah, Kansas, Arizona State, Houston. At Utah, home for Kansas. At Arizona State, home for Houston.
You better hope and pray that Arizona State can figure it out.
Look, right now, BYU is 5-0 in conference. Kansas State is 4-1. Iowa State's 4-0. Colorado's 4-1. So all I need is that Kansas State Iowa State game. Like if Kansas State beats Iowa State, it's Kansas State BYU in the Big 12 championship.
No, because the head-to-head tiebreaker would go to BYU.
But BYU and Kansas State would be the only one-loss teams in the conference. They would play each other in the chip. Kansas State wins out and BYU wins out.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, right now they're on a collision course.
That's going to be the fun thing because that's going to be the stuff we're going to start delving into soon.
Next week we're going to have rankings. I'm pumped.
We are. We're going to have rankings. So next week we will have obviously our normal previews, recaps, headlines, and then on top of that we will start having a weekly whatever week rankings breakdown because it's real now. So we wanted to do this Tuesday. We were going to do like a live type of thing. Scheduling wise for me and Cottrell, it's not going to work. I think the following week, I think it's as long as at least 2 of us can do it. I think we're going to kind of do like a quick 30-minute thing on Tuesday nights, and have live reactions as the rankings are coming out. So that'll be fun. This Tuesday, there's just a lot going on. On top of that, with the election, I think, as much as I would love to say college football is more important, there's going to be most people are going to be kind of glued to their TVs on Tuesday with the election. So, so the following week, we will talk about it more next week. But the following week, we'll probably reveal that that's what we're going to do. A nice little special thing on Tuesday nights. We'll get together and watch them as they're revealed live, give breakdowns, and then we'll have our normal Saturday shows on the way out. So. Anything else, gentlemen? Penn State, Ohio State's getting ready to kick. We are done on time. I love it.
Yep. I got to get out of this dumbass duck suit, put on some Ohio State gear.
You better put it back on at noon, all right? Or 3:30 your time. But you got to put that shit back on later.
Good Lord.
Bite me, crouching tiger.
Gentlemen, we are out. Enjoy your afternoon. Good luck to everybody. We will see everybody next week.
See you.